International Monetary Fund (IMF) commends the continued growth of the Omani economy and the government's efforts to implement structural reforms. With an investment exceeding 41 million Omani riyals, the first of its kind plant for converting old copper mining waste into valuable resources is inaugurated in Sohar. And the value of real estate trading in the Sultan of Oman exceeds 8.33 million Omani riyals by the end of last April. And now for the news in detail. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) commended the continued growth of the Omani economy within the framework of the 2025 Article 4 consultations. More details in the following report.
At the conclusion of its preliminary visit to the Sultanate of Oman's government, the International Monetary Fund commended the continued growth of the Omani economy within the framework of the 2025 Article 4 consultations. International Monetary Fund experts discussed with the Omani side the most prominent recent economic, financial and monetary policies and developments, as well as the progress made in structural reforms in the Sultanate of Oman. The meeting revealed that real GDP growth rate reached 1.7% last year, driven primarily by the strong performance of the non-oil sectors. Growth is expected to accelerate to 2.4% this year and 3.7% in 2026 as a result of the gradual lifting of the commitment to oil production ceilings and the continuation of economic diversification efforts. The fund also noted a decline in the public debt ratio to 35.5% of GDP last year, while commending the government's commitment to continuing fiscal reforms and investing in priority sectors. The International Monetary Fund affirmed the strength of the Omani banking sector thanks to high asset quality, adequate capital, and liquidity ratios, as well as continued profitability. It also noted the continued growth in credit to the private sector. The fund hailed the Sultanate of Oman's tireless efforts to implement structural reforms, most notably upgrading of the tax system, the operational success of the Future Fund in mobilizing private capital, and the efforts to develop the renewable energy sector.
With an investment exceeding 41 million Omani riyals, the first of its kind plant for converting old copper mining waste into pure copper was inaugurated in the Wilaya of Sohar using advanced and sustainable technologies. The project's production capacity in its first phase will reach almost 60 tons per year, increasing to 12,000 tons by December 2026. This step reflects the Sultan of Oman's drive towards sustainable manufacturing and green economy, enhancing the added value of local resources, localizing natural resources-based industries, and strengthening the competitiveness of the industrial sector in regional and international markets. The inauguration ceremony was presided over by His Excellency Qais bin Mohammed Al Yusuf, Minister of Commerce, Industry and Investment Promotion. Commercial cooperation and increasing competitiveness of the Omani and Bahraini industrial products in the regional and international markets top discussions of His Excellency Qais bin Mohammed Al Yusuf, Minister of Commerce, Industry and Investment Promotion, with His Excellency Abdullah bin Adil Fakhro, Minister of Industry and Commerce in the Kingdom of Bahrain. During the meeting, the two sides discussed means of enhancing partnership between Omani and Bahraini factories through benefiting from production inputs in both countries, as well as mutual promotion of industrial products, which contributes in attracting foreign investments. The meeting affirmed on the importance of activating memoranda of understanding that were signed between the two countries. The Sohar city has been selected as the guest of honor for the Arab Socially Responsible City Award 2025. This announcement was made during the meeting between His Excellency Mohammed bin Sulaiman Al-Kindi, Governor of North Al-Batna, and the delegation from the Regional Network for Social Responsibility. The delegation from the Regional Network for Social Responsibility praised Sohar City's outstanding development and community achievements, as well as activation for partnerships between the public and private sectors and civil society. The Sultan of Oman's real estate market is seeing solid growth, with transaction values rising nearly 10% by April. While sales volume dipped slightly, overall investment remains strong. More details in the following report.
Estate markets in Oman is showing signs of resilience and growth. By the end of April, the total value of real estate transactions reached over 833 million Omani riyals, reflecting a year-on-year increase of nearly 10%, according to the National Center for Statistics and Information. Fees collected from legal property dealings jumped by more than 18%, surpassing 24 million riyals. Meanwhile, the value of sales contracts rose by nearly 14%, amounting to 408.5 million riyals, even as the number of contracts dipped slightly by less than 2%, totaling around 21,000. Mortgage activity also strengthened, with over 7,100 contracts worth 421.5 million riyals. Exchange deals remained limited, recording just under 4 million riyals across 436 contracts. As for ownership, more than 73,400 property titles were issued, up nearly by 2%, while titles granted to GCC nationals declined by 4%, standing at 395 by the end of April. The figures point to a high-value market with steady investor interest, even as transaction volume softened slightly.
Sohar Free Zone signed a land-lease agreement with Matrix Alloys to establish an advanced, environmentally friendly ferrochrome production plant. The project spans an area of 2.2 hectares and has an investment cost estimated at 3,850,000 Omani riyals. The project's first phase is expected to be fully operational by 2026. The ferrochrome production plant aims to produce 20,000 tons of low-carbon ferrochrome annually and reduce pollution and harmful emissions from the use of coal and heavy oil, as the plant will be electricity-powered. The investment represents a pivotal step towards supporting the Sultan of Oman's efforts to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and strengthen its position as regional hub for sustainable manufacturing. Now for some international news. Palestinian health officials and witnesses say Israeli forces fired on people as they headed towards an distribution site, towards killing at least 27 in the third incident in 3 days. The near-daily shootings have come after an Israeli and US-backed foundation established 8 distribution points inside Israeli military zones, a system, it says, it is designed to circumvent Hamas. The United Nations has rejected the new system, saying it doesn't address Gaza's mounting hunger crisis and allow Israel to use aid as a weapon. The Israeli military previously said it fired warning shots at suspects who approached its forces early Sunday and Monday. When health officials and witnesses say 34 people were killed, the military denied opening fire on civilians or blocking them from reaching the aid sites. The latest round of peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, held in Istanbul yesterday under the Turkish mediation, concluded with what officials described as some positive developments, particularly on humanitarian matters. Following the talks, Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umarov, who led the Ukrainian delegation, stated at a press conference that the two sides had reached concrete humanitarian outcomes in the talks. Umarov said during the talks, Ukraine presented its agenda to Russia, proposing a 30-day unconditional ceasefire alongside the release of prisoners and the return of young soldiers and children. Russia will return 6,000 bodies of fallen Ukrainian soldiers. Russian presidential aide Vladimir Medinsky said after the peace talks, Russia and Ukraine agreed to exchange all heavily wounded and captured young soldiers between the ages of 18 and 25, while Russia proposed a 2 to 3 day ceasefire with Ukraine in some areas among the front lines. At least 3 people were killed and 20 injured today after Russia strikes hit Ukrainians' northern city of Sumy. A medical facility, residential buildings and vehicles were damaged. Commenting on the incident, Volodymyr Zelensky said it is clear that without global pressure, without decisive action from US, Europe and everyone in the world who hold power, President Putin would not agree even to a ceasefire. These strikes come after representatives from Russia and Ukraine met yesterday for their second round of direct talks in just over 2 weeks. But aside from agreeing to swap thousands of their dead and seriously wounded troops, they made no progress towards ending the 3-year-old war. China registered a total of 14.5 billion online transactions during the just concluded 3-day Dragon Boat Festival holiday, with increases in both volume and value year on year. According to the People's Bank of China's today, card payment in Giant China Union Pay and online payment clearing house, Nets Union Clearing Corporation, handled a total of 14 billion transactions during the holiday from May 31st to June 2nd, up 13% from the same period of last year. The combined value of the payment transactions reached about $67 billion, rising 3.4% from last year. The volume and the value of transactions made by overseas visitors via Union Pay and Nets Union climbed respectively by 11.86% and 58.8% year on year during the holiday. You're watching the Sound of Oman television. Before tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, commends the continued growth of the Omani economy and the government's efforts to implement structural reforms. With an investment exceeding 41 million Oman Riyals, the first of its kind plant for converting old copper mining wastes into valuable resources is inaugurated in Sohar. And the value of real estate trading in the South of Oman exceeds 8.33 million Oman Riyals by the end of last April. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here in the newsroom in the studios, thanks for watching. Good night.